Hello, this is Musing Heavy, the site devoted to alternative reflections on hard rock and heavy metal. My name is Stephen Meyer, and this is the first part of a four-part series based on my essay entitled Metal Mindfulness, Enhancing Mental Health with Heavy Music. Right, so this is definitely alternative thinking, I guess, for most people. What I'm arguing in this paper is that heavy metal, especially heavy metal, yes, heavy metal can be an excellent tool for keeping us in the present and keeping our minds healthy. All right. So in this first part, I'm really just going to set things up and kind of talk about this link in more general terms to see how I'm actually arguing this. Please see especially parts 2 and 3 of this series, and also the concluding part 2. I'll get into the nuts and bolts of this. But for now, let's just set things up. And as always, if you'd rather just read my essays, the links are provided below. Okay. So let's get going here. So mindfulness and metal. What a strange coupling that is. And I'm sure a lot of people would think that. Well, I'm going to argue, actually, heavy metal was made for mindfulness. Anyway, let's sort of a little bit of background here. Among many other things, the Buddha taught, do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. And I'll be talking about that quite a bit in this series, why it's so important to stay present as often as we can. Okay. One does not have to be particularly religious or even spiritual for that matter to recognize that several early Buddhist principles and practices have permeated modern society, right? A lot of these ideas, at least informally, are kind of everywhere these days. Encouraging those with mental health challenges to incorporate various breathing techniques into the recovery, various meditation approaches, really, or to demonstrate how everyone gains from being present as much as possible has been a highly lucrative for both credible and frankly shady coaches found in legion, online, in print, and within various healthcare offices. So yes, there's some people that are, maybe less than genuine about this, but the folks that are the true coaches and trying to help people achieve mindfulness, etc., I think there's a lot to gain there. The practice of living in the now is loosely termed mindfulness. Living in the now, mindfulness. And while it can involve meditation, it is more fundamentally about being aware of an action as you do it and a thought as you think it. So being completely conscious of what you do and what you think, right? Sounds simple, but it's actually quite profound. This is also referred to as being awake or to be awakened. Essentially, it's the opposite of always just letting your mind wander and never being cognizant of this occurring. Okay? According to popular spiritual guru Eckhart Tolle, being unawake to the mind's thinking patterns is a major source of personal unease and suffering, or as he is wont to say, only serves to feed the pain body. Okay, if you want to know more about that, I would recommend his book called A New Earth, or he's all over the place on YouTube. He's not hard to find. Tolle teaches, though, that the path to recovery and or just contentment is significantly contingent on a person's ability to sit with each arising thought or body sensation in the absence of judgment and just be in the present moment. Again, sounds simple, but it's actually quite useful if you practice these things. Or, as Seattle heavy grunge titans Mudhoney succinctly put in their song called I'm Now, from the album The Lucky Ones, terrific album, although really everything by Mudhoney is terrific. But anyway, they clearly get these Buddha principles, or some of them. The chorus goes, the past made no sense. The future looks tense. So I'm now. Perfect. So succinctly put, and it's perfect. Okay, I know Some may dismiss this as new age nonsense, hippie revival fodder, or just suitable for the yoga crowd, right? I know there's people out there that think that, but hey, I'll tell you what, there's considerable evidence supporting the benefits of living in the moment, right? Tomlinson, writing for the website Eckhart Yoga, summarizes that a person who regularly practices mindfulness may experience any number of these very beneficial things: reduce levels of anxiety and depression, improve focus and attention, less stress, we all could use that, decreased emotional overreactivity, and an increased empathy to the plight of others, right? Techniques associated with mindfulness have long been championed by naturopaths and other healthcare providers operating within the alternative healthcare sector. So naturopaths, homeopaths, most chiropractors will talk about meditation and mindfulness and yoga, massage therapists, and on it goes, right? So that's been part of their go-to game plan for a long time. But interestingly, even contemporary allopathic medical practitioners, so say like family doctors and psychiatrists, etc., so in the conventional medical sector, you might say, even these folks nowadays are less likely to discount these approaches compared to in the past, with some actually endorsing the benefits of meditation and the like, right? So even the conventional sectors really come around to a lot of this, right? Which I think is fantastic. All right, so where does heavy music fit into all of this, you might ask? Okay, well, like I say, parts 2 and 3, I really put this link together for you, but here, just some broad strokes. While I am certainly not the first to link mindfulness, meditation, and music, I'm not aware of anyone who has described how heavy music specifically can be used as a means to being present. By tradition, I guess we might say, most tend to view ambient mood music as the best choice for calming the mind and encouraging meditative states, right? And if you use that, that's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't be. However, I think screamingly aggressive, heavy tunes can also be excellent tools, even if many will often think the opposite, and frankly can bring on mindfulness in ways that synthesizer drones cannot. So I think there's things about heavy metal music that can invoke mindfulness that those synthesizer, can't do. All right, or at least that's what I think, and I'm going to argue that. Okay, so even though I'm going to emphasize heavy music, especially heavy metal, in this paper and in this series, I think many of the guidelines that I outlined can be used by anyone regardless of their musical preferences, okay? Essentially, it's about being an active listener, all right? That's really the key, and thinking along with the music, rather than just passively hearing the songs and the sounds and letting your mind meander. Now, there are times when that's fine. You just want to chill and listen to tunes and not really be engaged, or it's background for work or whatever. That's fine. But if you want to use heavy music for mindfulness, you got to be an active listener, right? And I'm going to tell you how you can do that if you're not already doing it. You might already be doing this and you don't realize it. Okay. As with most forms of music, heavy metal, of course, as I was saying, can also be enjoyed with your mind on autopilot, right? But I would argue to get the most out of it, especially heavy metal, careful listens are required, and as such, reasonably intricate, i.e. complicated metal, is completely complementary to encouraging mindfulness. And you thought it was just about headbanging. Yeah, it's that too, but a whole lot more, or it can be. All right. So the remainder of this paper is divided into 3 main parts with a concluding section thereafter. And that's basically how I have the YouTube presentations organized as well. First, I argue that the innate complexity of most heavy metal albums, and yes, some forms of hard rock too, inherently encourage active listening, right? And thus promote mindfulness, particularly if you're consuming a piece that you've not fully assimilated, right? And we're going to look at Iron Maiden's Senjutsu as an example of how you can achieve mindfulness with a fairly complex piece of work, right? That'll be in part 2. The second main part of this, part 2, that is of my YouTube series. Second main section, I point out, though, that highly familiar music can also be a satisfactory tool for being present, but it needs to be approached in a novel fashion. So that'll be part 3 in the YouTube presentations. And while, again, I will stick with my argument, and I'll make this throughout, that the best approach to using heavy metal, heavy music as a means to mindfulness is to go for things that you don't know super well, right? Because it'll challenge your mind more. But if you're determined, if you're the type of person, hey, I only like to listen to albums I really know really, really well, you still can use it. But you've got to approach those songs that you know super well in a new way. And we're actually going to use the example of Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses as a case in point, because that's an album a lot of us know really well. So you can still do it. And then third, and this will be in part 4 in terms of the YouTube presentations, I discuss how upgrading one's listening environment may enhance this metal mindfulness connection. So I make a few points on, anything that allows you to hear the music more clearly is going to help you achieve mindfulness if you're using heavy metal, right? So that might be positioning your speakers a little better, or choosing CDs and albums or things you stream. Typically better recorded things are superior for this type of exercise than those recordings that are hard to hear, etc. So I talk about those things. And also in the conclusion, in addition to sort of wrapping things up, I make a few other recommendations of bands and albums that I think are especially good for helping you achieve mindfulness, if that's your goal. All right. So that's the introduction. I hope you'll check out the other parts of this series and have a terrifically calm and mindful day. See you later.